Okay, here's the greenhouse. As you can see it from the distance, I've got it completely covered. And Colin is going to help me show the greenhouse to everyone. Okay, now I'm just going to show you real quick. I'm going to show you the gutter system I have down here. And this downspout that I have right now from here, I'm actually going to take off. This little elbow is going to get turned 180 degrees, go right through the wall. And that's going to feed our rain barrel system. And also, from this view, you can see the tops of the windows. Okay, you can see them right there. They're not technically windows, I guess you could say, or vent flaps, whatever you want to call them. All it is coroplast, or corrugated plastic. They work fantastic. Okay, now here's the entrance to the greenhouse. And of course you can see we go right down inside, and there's Colin demonstrating his construction skills in one of the raised beds. That raised bed that he's actually working in is a 6 foot by 4 foot raised bed. And he's doing a darn fine job. Say hi, Colin. He's working very, very hard right now. And I can demonstrate a few other things while we're here. And you can see right up above us, you can see the actual windows we saw from outside. And I'll go up and I'll show those how those work. This is a design of my own. This is basically just a bunch of paint poles, or actually the dipping brushes for car washing. All I did is I put a hinge pin here, pull the hinge pin out, and the windows just adjust up. I've got 3 different holes on the main beam, and I've got 4 holes on the actual pole itself. So I can pretty much just select wherever I want that window to be and slap it through. I can also lock it down completely, so it's locked down tight. I can lock it down in this fashion, or I can lock it down with the pole completely out of the way. So this is kind of like, I found that to be a little bit more convenient. It keeps it completely clear. The roof line itself, I would say the actual ridge line of the roof is probably about 9 feet high. I can reach up about 8 feet, so I'd say it's a good 9 feet high there. Keeps it completely clear and out of the way. It's really nice. So the greenhouse film is actually a 6mm greenhouse film plastic. It's got an ultraviolet inhibitor property, which is nice because this wood, the stain I used on the wood is actually rated for 8 years. It's like a semi-solid stain. 2 coats of that, and I chose a dark color for protection because these are non-treated boards. These are non-treated 2x3 boards. So I used a dark stain to protect them, keep the moisture off from penetrating. And then of course with the UV inhibitors from the film, I expect I should have at least a good 10 years out of the wood stain itself. It's 8-year rated. The film is 4-year rated, and I think that's in Florida sun. This is not in a direct sun environment right here. So the film is ultraviolet. It has infrared retention to keep in the heat, anti-drip or anti-condensation for the interior lining. Also an anti-dust layer to keep any dust that builds up inside the greenhouse from collecting on the film. It's real nice and heavy. It's a 60% diffuse sun selector film. Works fantastic so far. I'm really impressed with it, really happy with it. So that's about it. I think my grapevine right here, I'm hoping it comes up and just kind of runs right along. I'll even have it so it goes right over the doorway or something. I'm not sure. We'll see how things go. Okay, so we'll just take a walk down inside. There's our 1 6-foot by 4-foot raised bed. Here's a one that's about 3.5 by 4 foot raised bed. Colin is working another 6-foot by 4-foot raised bed currently. He's making sure the soil's turned over well. See, the walkway that we're walking on is the perfect width for the wheelbarrow to just wheel right down with any loads of soil. The current location of the rocket mass heater is actually going to be relocated. As it turns out, the rocket mass heater's location is slightly uphill, and I had it with its exhaust tubing running all the way underneath all of these pavers, all the way down through. And the initial exit design was going to be down here, and that was actually going to exit right out of this, one of these two panels right here. I forget which one I had it, but as it turns out, this is elevation wise, it's slightly downhill from where the rocket mass heater is. So I believe, because the rocket stove portion actually worked fantastic, so what I believe is actually happening, I couldn't get a good draft. I kept getting smoke back. Regardless of the fact that my chimney height was a good 10-12 feet up. So what I believe is actually happening is, because it's a downhill run, the gas is still being warm, they don't want to actually flow downhill. You know, gases want to, obviously hot air wants to rise. So I'm simply going to demo the mass heater where it is. I'll keep the entire fire brick lined rocket stove portion intact, and I'll relocate the entire thing and reconstruct it down on this end. And then it'll just be a reverse of my initial plan, but I'll have my bench right here in that slightly exposed portion. And of course, where Colin is working, it'll be all paver walkway all the way up through. Underneath all of these pavers is cob. You can kind of see it here, but that's all cob down in there. So that's all a heat sink. Exhaust is a 6-inch system, and this will all absorb heat and radiate heat. And then this, of course, will be where the chimney actually is. You can see my finger here, and it will chimney exhaust. This is the first tilted window, and it'll probably exhaust right out of that one right there. Right there. I'll build a little square frame. We'll run the chimney straight up through, cap it from the outside, and that'll keep any extra crap from coming into the greenhouse, and we'll still have a nice setup. And then of course on this back wall right here, I'll probably create a raised elevated bed. That'll be for herbs and for nurseries. Since this will all be cleared out, I'll have this entire area available for growing space. So it's kind of hard to tell in the video, but step back a little bit. But this is a good 10 foot from the door here all the way to the back wall. It's a good 10-foot width. So I'll have plenty of area to create a raised bed in this area. Slight walkway between the two. Another raised bed over on this side. And then of course an elevated bed right here. The exhaust will go straight up past that, maybe even through. I'll get creative, who knows. I'll have hanging plants throughout. Here's our rain barrel system. As I mentioned, outside, of course, the water will come right through. I still need to get the attachments in order to get the downspout
tapped in with a spigot at the bottom of the barrels. I'll have both barrels set up. Second barrel will probably be an overflow off of the first one. Both will have spigots. And then I'll have, what I have currently is soaker hoses. I don't know if they're going to have enough pressure to work or not. We'll find out. But I'm going to try soaker hoses on each one of the beds. I'll run soaker hoses all the way through, all the way up to there, all the way around. There's a 50-foot hose I can wrap all the way around. And then I'll take a second hose and I'll run it from that end, and I'll run it up here because there's going to be 2 more raised beds on this side. So there'll be another 1, 2, 3 raised beds down here. The mass heater will go where the grass is now currently. And that grass is an ornamental grass. It's almost like bamboo. It's very, very stiff, very sturdy. Good stuff for reinforcing the cob. And my grapevine, you can see him here. What I'll do is I'll actually have the grapevine coming up, and I'm probably going to have wires set up on the beams, and then I'm going to have it running probably, I'm not sure, I've never grown a grapevine before, but I'll probably have it running lengthwise along the entire beam here. And then of course if it wants to run up, I can always run it up these side beams here. So these guys here, it's all 2x3 construction. I spent the entire winter doing compound miter cuts. You get a good look at my joinery here. I don't know if there's enough glare there. Let's see if I can find it better lighting. So here's my joinery. Okay, not perfect. These guys came out beautiful though. The actual joints there really did come on really nice and tight. And of course there's my windows. I put some mesh in just to make sure any birds don't fly in and get trapped in the greenhouse if I have the windows vented. And that's about it. I have some plants started. I have a lot more to get in the ground. There's a lot more to come. A lot of them are direct sow, so of course I have to wait for Mr. Construction Boy here to evacuate his road crew so that I can start growing in the raised beds. So the soil that I have actually, it's all sifted. What I used is I used a 1/2-inch screen. Don't mind my hair. I used a 1/2-inch screen and completely sifted all the soil out. So all of this is basically, I think a lot of it is actually worm casings because it's been in a compost pile for the last year or so. It's really nice. I mean, you bunch it up tight, it pops right apart. It's got good drainage. Lots of worms in there. It's going to keep it happy. Really happy with the soil. What I did is I built these boxes out of pressure treated wood that was from the original garden. So I actually lined them with a 3.5 mil plastic drop cloth just to prevent any of the copper naphthalate from leaching into the soil. So I lined them all, and I actually put on the underneath, I put a weed block underneath all of the soil to keep anything that's present on the ground from coming up through. So hopefully, because I'm in the greenhouse, the only thing I'll be growing in here is what I plant in here. I won't get any weeds, so I shouldn't have any problems. And if I do, they should be pretty easy to work with because I can just dig through this soil pretty easily anytime I want.